Welcome to Aligned and Soulful Leadership. My name is Kavita Melwani, and I empower soulful, multicultural women of color to opulently shine their light without the hustle. I truly believe you can fulfill your soul's desire without losing yourself, your health, or your life in the process. I know that you can ignite your confidence and know your worth, all while walking your divine, unique path. So in this podcast, I will dive deep into topics, challenges, and blocks that women of color experience as they rise up into their aligned life and work. My deep desire is that BIPOC women can lead through their inner wisdom in a way that honors their soul. Are you ready to rise up as the leader you were born to be? Then this podcast is for you. Have you heard of the Great Resignation? Are you in a career right now that you are thinking of leaving or changing? Have you reached a level of dissatisfaction in your career where you're actually thinking that you are counting the hours, days, minutes of every week and only looking forward to the weekend? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then this podcast is for you. So I'm going to be discussing not only a little bit more about what could be happening based on some research I've done and my experience with clients, but I'm also going to be discussing how this impacts women of color in leadership and specifically first, second generation immigrants and the mindset that we can come with and how that impacts this great resignation as well. So let's begin. What are you feeling right now when you hear about the Great Resignation? This was a term based on my research and an article from NPR that said that it is from a Texas A&M psychologist, Anthony Klotz, and he predicted and coined that term in May. Okay. And so what he talks about is pandemic epiphanies, right? So after the pandemic, a lot of people are realizing that they are ready to move on, that life is short, and it's like almost like a wake-up call for a lot of people. Now, this pandemic isn't over, so I don't want to pretend that it is. And we are hopefully seeing some improvements in some parts of the world. And at the same time, there are still people figuring out what they're going to do next. Okay. So that is one part of what is happening. So when people look at these ideas, there's also the idea of burnout, of leaving the career, right? So according to an article in the Business Insider, their headline reads, 95% of workers are thinking about quitting their jobs, according to a new survey. And burnout is the number one reason, okay? So, some of the highlights from that are they felt that workers felt job opportunities were available to them, which is another reason they're considering switching their industry, right? And Monster.com polled 649 employed workers in June, and that's when they got that statistic of 95% said they're considering leaving their jobs. Now, I always take these things with a grain of salt, but the burnout is real. I will say that. And they also said in that article that 61% of Americans felt like they were at least somewhat burned out. That is really a scary figure, right? Burnout being that prevalent. So that is some part of what's happening. And so, talking about careers and changing careers, that's a complex process for a lot of people, right? For some people, it's pretty easy. They've already been pondering a career move. They've been researching a career change. They actually know what career they were planning to step into. They've done the interviews, maybe even shadowed people that do and work in that field or in that specific job, and they're feeling like they are ready and they're willing to do what it takes to move into that career. So if that's the case, then, that is it's really clear, right? It's just a matter of going and moving past the fear and then stepping into the next steps, making sure that you have whatever you need to get through that financially, you have a support system around you, and moving forward step by step, even though it's scary. On the other hand, there's a lot of people that are burnt out and they don't know what they want to do. They do know they want to do something different. Okay. So when you're in that place, it's very difficult to figure out. It can be, not always, but it can be very difficult to figure out what is next for you. Where do you go next? Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple steps to get you started with that process and some questions to ask yourself if you're feeling this. So really check in with yourself right now. When you think about Monday morning, and you are maybe Sunday night, getting ready for the week, what are the thoughts, feelings that you have about Monday morning and going to work? If you're not sure, if you've been kind of like on this wheel of just doing and doing, it's really important to take that time to step outside of that daily grind, to say the word the least, and to really look at your thoughts, feelings, and how you truly feel about a situation. Okay. So I'm going to encourage you to sit and give yourself some space, calm your nervous system down, and maybe even write about what you really feel. And you could do an active imagination technique, which is basically asking your higher self through a journaling process where you write the question and then you center and ground yourself and then write whatever comes, like a free writing process, right? So that is a way to really check in with what you're feeling and what you're thinking about your current career, especially, those key moments of like Sunday night, Monday morning. Okay. So I think it's pretty normal for people to feel maybe some lack of momentum on Monday mornings for some people. Some people, that's just their normal way of functioning. And I'm using Monday morning if you have a normal work week. I know a lot of you may not. Okay. So just use whatever that start of your work time is. Okay. If it's not Monday morning. And so when I've talked to people myself and what I've been looking, and even the article I mentioned, a lot of what's happening is not necessarily that a person needs to change their career immediately, but they really need to change how they're approaching their career and why they're feeling burnt out. Okay? Because a lot of times that is the main issue, that the person wants to change a career. So if you are changing your career to get rid of burnout, then I would ask, are there other things that you can do to reduce your burnout now, so that you don't change your career and then restart the cycle of burnout, right? Because we take ourselves into our new career, right? So, working on how you show up with work, how you manage your time, how you manage your energy, how you set boundaries, how you say no to things, how do you say yes to things, how you ask for help or receive help. Those are just some key things to take a look at first, so that you can see, is it that you are creating that situation in your life that is full of burnout and that's why you're just like ready to leave? Or can you change how you show up and how you function in your career first, and then check in and see if you still are ready to change? Okay, so that's the first step that I would recommend. So if you're feeling burnout, ask yourself, sit and write about it, give yourself space away from it, take a vacation, if you can. I think that's a great thing, even one full day off. Make sure you're taking regular days off. Look at how you're showing up with your work or your business and see what you can shift there. And then if you're still feeling that sense of, I want to leave right now, I can't do this work anymore, the work is boring, mind-numbing, I'm working too hard, there's something else that I want to be passionate about, then I'm going to ask you to check in to see what that's about. What is it that you really are excited about? What are some things that you naturally read about? When you are, I don't know if you scroll social media, what are the articles that you stop at, right? When you have time on your own, what do you read about? What do you listen to if you're listening to podcasts? What are the podcasts that you naturally listen to? The topics that you're interested in? What are the things that you like to talk about with your friends, right? So start to look in those areas, and that can give you some clue as to where to go, right? Another reason that people come to me to shift careers or change careers or have their burnout or business is that they are feeling that they're not fulfilling their purpose. Okay. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. I had another podcast about purpose, which I'll have a link, by the way, to the articles I mentioned and this podcast on purpose in the show notes. What I wanted to say is that I believe you are fulfilling your purpose already. Okay. Just by being alive, just by showing up and being who you are. And if you're worried about not doing your work in the world and fulfilling your purpose, start with showing up authentically. Be who you are. Follow your heart's desire, as long as you're not intentionally harming yourself, others, and all that, right? So follow that and see how you are already fulfilling your purpose every day, because you are. And so when we are denying who we are, when we're not following that, that's when we can feel like we're not fulfilling our purpose, okay? So you can start to look there as well, right? And maybe, people tend to think the purpose is synonymous with career. It's like your purpose is your career. And I'm going to tell you it's not. It's just part of who you are and how you show up in the world. Your purpose is not just your business or your career. It's your relationships. It's how you show up at the coffee shop. It's how you show up with your family and friends. It's how you show up in, if you're marketing, how you show up in your marketing. Everything that you do, how you show up energetically, even how you just feel is your purpose. It's not just that career, okay? So I just want that, to hopefully ease that internal desire that you are not fulfilling your purpose. Okay. So maybe you still do need to change your career, and you've looked at all that I've mentioned, and you've checked in, and you've started to shift how you show up, and you know that you are looking at how you're showing up purposefully in your whole life, not just your career. And you're like, you feel like you really need to shift your career. So then I would really encourage you to work with someone that specializes in helping people find their next steps, their next career. That's something that I love helping my clients with. So, if you want to speak, I'd love to talk with you. I have a link to schedule a free clarity call. It's 30 minutes. And we talk about what's happening and seeing if it's a good fit to work together, right? And so people get derived benefits just out of that call. So that's something I just actually love doing. So if you're interested in that, and if I'm not a good fit, I'm going to encourage you to find someone that is, right? And so go out and look for some support to help you with that process, because our go-to tends to be to ask family and friends, which the family and friends, care, love, and support you. And sometimes they're too close to see the things that an external person that is really just looking from a more objective stance of what they're seeing, how they can support you, see some things that you may not. Okay. So if you want to start the process on your own, really ask yourself some questions, right? If you want to change your career, you most likely will have to start at an entry-level position, right? And for some people, I will say I've had clients where starting at an entry-level position is not going to work for them financially, because they have some responsibilities, they have a mortgage or kids or different things, and they're not feeling that that's a possibility. And so we have to look at other ways that I can support them. I've had people make lateral career moves, even change roles in their companies. I've had people decided to start a business, and they usually, transition into that. So there's lots of options. Okay, if starting at an entry level position is not a possibility. Now, of course, some of your skills are transferable, and if you have the connections and you can network, that may not always happen. But you have to be ready for that potential possibility, right? And so are you willing to be a beginner in that mindset of being in the beginner? Are you willing to learn new things? Are you excited about, think about like when a toddler is starting to walk, right? Like learning how to walk again, right? Are you excited about how that feels to be in that beginner mindset? And does that feel good to you? Okay. And really look at the things that you have loved to do in your current job, right? Oftentimes, our brain looks at what isn't working. It looks at what's not good about our situation and what we need to change. That's how it protects us. And so it doesn't default for most people to all the things that we have going well. What are the great things in your current career, job, business? What are those things that you are receiving? What are the benefits that you're getting? And when I say benefits, I'm not referring to like health insurance and things like that. I'm talking about other benefits that you're getting, right? And you could look at the practical and also look at the practical insurance and all those other things, right? So, just wanting this to be a very mindful thing. Sometimes a person's like, I need to change my career because of I'm not fulfilling my purpose. Sometimes I need to change my career because if the career is a lot of burnout, then, it's more about how can you manage yourself and your energy and your time, right? And so, and looking at that and really mindfully taking steps and exploring, because sometimes, a lot of times, and this has happened with my clients too, that they have a perception of what a career that they want to move into is going to be like. And then when they actually do informational interviews with people that are in the trenches of that career or that business, they understand that it's not going to be the way they thought and it's not for them. Or the other side does happen too, where they talk to someone in that career and they love it, and they love it even more, and they're more excited, right, to get into that and to step into it and to learn about it and to be mentored. And so that place, following that passion, following that excitement, following that where you're being guided. Okay. So, there are the practical elements of a career change, of looking at, the finances and all that stuff. And if you're really excited and passionate and you know what you want to do, then it's about making sure that you're ready, right? And you're willing to budget, or you're willing to do the things, and the people around you are ready to support you in that process, right? Or you create a community of people that are supporting you through the process. Okay. And so I'm hoping that these career tips can start you on the process of really looking mindfully at what is happening, right? Instead of the job or the career or the business be dragging you down, right? And so now all the things that I mentioned are applicable to most people that are looking at career change. Now I want to add in the element, if you add all the things that I said, right, about the career, the overgiving, the boundaries, the saying no, are you following your passion? And then you add the element of being a woman of color or being a first, second generation immigrant, then you're adding that cultural pull that you may have, right? So, as a child of immigrants, I had this sense of obligation to my parents, right? And so, sometimes we'll have these conversations, and they'll go back to, and they'll tell stories of how they arrived in this country, in the US, and how they had to struggle and things they had to give, and how much they had to work, and all these things. And there was nothing in there about purpose, right? And there was nothing in there about the fact that their career has to be fulfilling. That's not even part of what I heard growing up. What I heard was, you do what it takes, you make the money, you are able to be safe if you can make the income. Okay. And so that might be some of the mindset that you have, the programming that you have, the conditioning you have from your childhood. And also, a lot of times women of color can feel that certain fields are not as open to them, right? Already as women, there are certain areas where women are underrepresented, right? And then if you add women of color, oftentimes we don't have real role models in those fields. We don't have mentors that look like us, that are doing that, right? I know I faced that myself when I started this business as a coach, right? And doing hypnosis and doing all this stuff. I didn't have really anyone in my immediate surrounding doing that. And so, doing it and stepping into it and not knowing where to go. And I knew I needed support. So I found mentors, and I had great mentors through the process. And I continue to have great mentors. And, because of that, because of not having that, role models, or those role models, I needed that even more, right? And so I know I needed to have people that have done this, have been successful, and know how to manage it, right? And so I just started to follow that. So now that's the thing. The thing is that it's something you have to seek out. It's not naturally there, right? For a lot of people, they have an aunt or someone, a sister-in-law, or whatever. You look at extended family, right? They have someone they know, or even just people in their community that are doing the specific thing they're thinking of doing, the specific career, the specific business, taking that track. But for a lot of women of color, they don't have those role models, and so you have to almost there's it's like that other barrier that you have to move past. And then if you add that familial conditioning of, purpose and all that is not important, if you add that element into the mix, then you question yourself and you wonder if it's really, am I being selfish by pursuing a passion? Am I, maybe I should just, do the practical thing, right? Maybe I should take the practical route. And the thing is that choice, I want that choice for you to be conscious, not based on conditioning. Okay. So if you choose, and I'm going to say quote unquote, the practical career choice, that is because that's what you choose to do, knowing because that fits your values and what you want in your life and what you want to create, versus that is the only way that I'm not going to feel guilty, right? That's the only way that I'm not going to feel like I'm being selfish. Okay. So really, really looking at that. And I know for a lot of, the second, first generation immigrants, fulfilling your purpose is not really something we ever talked about in my home and a lot of my clients, right? And so oftentimes your family won't understand. They won't understand that you have this deep soul desire to pursue a different path, and that you want to go down that path, right? And so you can do it anyway, right? And so seeking a community of like-minded individuals around you is going to help you through that process. Okay, just know that you're not alone. Others have done it. I've worked with clients who have done it, and I know of others who have done it. Okay, you don't have to follow that prescribed path that you were told is the right way to live. And I believe this energy that we're in, the Great Resignation, is providing an opening, right, for this conversation that may have been much more difficult a couple of years ago. So this conversation of that, we can have and spend our lives living in a way that's in alignment with who we are and what we want and what our soul desires, right? And we don't have to just follow what we were taught that is okay. Okay. So just a quick recap of what I talked about today. So first, I discussed about this idea of that the Great Resignation is often related to the pandemic and burnout. And we talked about looking at how you're showing up in your career right now, in your business right now, instead of just automatically defaulting into the I'm going to change, right? And then, for those that are wanting to look at changing careers, starting to follow the passion, their natural interests, and just starting to explore that process, asking yourself if you're willing to start over, if you need to, meaning starting at entry-level positions, and also understanding that women of color and first, second generation immigrants may not have had the role models of following your purpose, okay? And that we necessarily don't also have the role models in the industries and careers we may be interested in. And I also talked about purpose and, the strong desire to fulfill your purpose and to notice how you're already fulfilling your purpose on a regular basis to help you to continue down this process of the exploration of what you want to spend your career doing. And, the purpose being something of how you show up in the world. Okay. So, I am excited to continue to explore this topic further. I have some great interviews coming up with leaders who have stepped out of what they were told and prescribed and really become, business women and pursued careers that fill their soul. Okay, so I have some of those coming up, so I'm excited to share those interviews soon. And I'm going to further explore burnout, especially for the first, second generation immigrants. And if you have questions that you want me to talk about, if you are, there's a topic that you really want me to discuss on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. You can check the show notes on how to contact me. You can email me at kavitalifecoach@gmail.com. So until next time, take good care. Bye. Thank you for joining me for Aligned and Soulful Leadership. I was inspired to start this podcast as a way to empower women of color to rise up into their aligned leadership. Remember, I will have all the resources I mentioned during this episode available in the show notes at alignedandsoulfulpodcast.com. I'm your host, Kavita, and if you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends. And if you haven't received my free abundance meditation and exercise, then go to alignedandsoulfulleadership.com and subscribe to my newsletter, and you will receive this powerful visualization and exercise to ignite your abundant life. Thank you. Until next time, take good care. Bye.